Welcome to China in Focus. I'm Alice Tang, in for Tiffany Meyer. Our top story. China discovering a new bat coronavirus capable of infecting humans. The virologist behind the discovery, known as China's Batwoman, works for a Chinese lab accused of leaking COVID-19. President Trump signing an order blocking Chinese investment in U.S. tech and other strategic fields. And China is threatening retaliation. Is Trump's China tariff push sparking a shift? An American tech giant just announced hundreds of billions of dollars in new U.S. investments, creating tens of thousands of jobs. China and Russia marking the third anniversary of Russia's Ukraine invasion, affirming their no-limits friendship. This comes just after President Trump's very good talks with Russia. Before we dive into today's top story, we'd like to share an important update. You can now catch China in Focus on Ganjing World every Tuesday instead of YouTube. We'll publish the link in the description box below at that time, or you can search China in Focus at ganjingworld.com. Researchers have discovered a new bat coronavirus in China that can infect humans, called HKUCOV2. Researchers say it could infiltrate human cells in similar ways to the virus that causes COVID-19 by binding to the same receptor in the lungs, nose, and respiratory passages. Dr. Mark Siegel, a clinical professor at NYU Langone Health, told Fox News that the risk of this virus spreading to humans is still very low. He explained that the virus's receptors has a weaker bind, making it much less powerful than the one behind COVID-19. The new bat virus is discovered after COVID-19 claimed over 7 million lives worldwide. Worth noting, the virologist who discovered the new bat virus is Shizheng Li. She works for the Wuhan Institute of Virology, a lab where some suspect the virus behind COVID-19 may have leaked. This year, the CIA joined the FBI in assessing that the COVID-19 pandemic is more likely to have come from a lab rather than nature. However, the agency added that it has low confidence in this conclusion and still considers it plausible that the virus originated in nature. Shizheng Li, often referred to as China's Batwoman, is known for studying some of the world's most dangerous pathogens. For over a decade, her team has researched how different coronaviruses from animals could potentially infect humans. In 2015, Shi co-published a research paper with an epidemiologist from the University of North Carolina. The paper highlighted the risks of their experiment on the coronavirus capable of infecting human cells. A new battle between the world's two largest economies. President Trump issued new measures to restrict Chinese investment in critical American technology and infrastructure, with a memorandum on Friday. China dismissed Trump's move the following day, calling it, quote, very unreasonable.
According to the order, the Committee on Foreign Investment in the U.S. is slated to curb Chinese funds in strategic U.S. sectors, including technology, critical infrastructure, healthcare, energy, and so on. It also said the Trump administration will consider expanding the range of the restrictions, targeting sensitive know-how like semiconductors, AI, quantum computing, and others. The order called out China for exploiting U.S. capital and ingenuity to fund and advance the Chinese military and other strategic assets, and said that could pose threats to the U.S. national security. China's Commerce Ministry lashed out at the Trump administration over the restrictions and threatened to take necessary measures to fight back.
A U.S. tech giant appears to be reacting to Trump's China tariff push. On Monday, Apple announced $500 billion in U.S. investment over the next 4 years, pumping about 20,000 research and development jobs across the country.
The move comes after CEO Tim Cook met with President Trump in the Oval Office last week. Many of Apple's products that are assembled in China could face 10% tariffs imposed by Trump earlier this month. The iPhone maker did secure some waivers from China tariffs in the president's first administration. Trump thanked Apple and Cook in a social media post, writing that the investment showed the company's confidence in his administration. Apple is the largest customer for chips produced in an Arizona factory owned by Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company. Apple's investment will include a factory in Texas for artificial intelligence servers.
February 24 marks the third anniversary of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. On this day, Chinese regime leader Xi Jinping affirmed his no-limits friendship with Moscow during a phone call with Russian President Vladimir Putin. Chinese state-owned media reported the news.
The talk between China and Russia comes as President Trump pushes for a quick deal to settle the war in Ukraine, citing mounting casualties. Trump said he had very good talks with Putin last week, raising the question of whether the U.S. could draw a wedge between Beijing and Moscow. And China's call with Russia earlier today appeared aimed at dispelling any such prospects. The Chinese regime leader said China and Russia cannot be moved apart and that they're looking at a long-term partnership. Mutual tensions with the United States have moved China and Russia closer. They first declared a no-limits friendship back in 2022 after Putin deployed troops to invade Ukraine. Over the past decade, the two leaders have met over 40 times.
U.S.-Russia peace talks are moving forward after Secretary of State Marco Rubio met with Russian officials. Neither China nor Ukraine were invited to the talks. Retired Lieutenant Colonel Darren Gobb speaks with NTD's Chris Beers about President Trump's plan to end the Ukraine-Russian war and what it could mean for China. Gobb is a senior geopolitical strategist. He serves as Black Hawk helicopter pilot and a battalion commander.
If Trump succeeds at securing peace between Russia and Ukraine, what could that mean for U.S.-Russia relations, like you were talking about earlier? And furthermore, Russia-China relations in turn. Because, as you know, Russia and China have been drawing closer since this war began, and the U.S. and China aren't exactly friends here.
Well, the U.S. and China aren't exactly friends. We're strategic competitors. Russia and China throughout history have not always been friends. In fact, they've been enemies more than they have been friends. And that relationship has always been a little tenuous. And this was a friendship driven by need and not by affinity. That friendship has already started to fray. And if we do this right and bring Russia back into the fold of something more Western than they are now, that could bode well for our long-term relationship. And the challenge will be, despite the fact what Russia has done in Ukraine, how horrible this war was, the decisions they made as a nation and with regards to atrocities and things like that, we also cannot repeat what I call Versailles 2.0, which is punish the aggressor so bad, all you've done is make things worse, and you have another war in 10, 15, or 20 years, and you start this cycle all over again. There's a lot to be seen there, and we have a long ways to go. But for the first time, I'm looking forward to seeing where this could go towards peace rather than just letting the war continue for no reason.
But do you think that it's possible that the longer-term trajectory is towards the West sort of embracing Russia? I mean, it almost sounds impossible.
Well, the potential exists. And there's historical precedent for that, too, because going back even to the post-Cold War era, there were times when Russia was seeking to become more of a European-style community than they were trying to align with Eastern powers, China, Iran, and all those others that we're grown used to, unfortunately, now. So it does exist. How you get there is not going to be an easy process, if it happens at all. It depends on who's willing to give up what and whether, how much are we willing to kind of forget about some of the things that have happened in this conflict. That's never pleasant or easy to do, but history has proven that it can be done and societies can improve and get better, despite the fact that they've had a period of violence in their history. Look at Germany, look at Japan, World War II. There's history to prove what can happen.
All right, Colonel Darren Gobb, thank you so much for joining us. Good to see you as always.
You too. Thanks. Have a good night.
Coming up, OpenAI is pushing back, banning several accounts allegedly linked to China. What were they up to? Oakland University is cutting ties with 3 Chinese universities following urgent warnings from lawmakers. Why are they concerned about fueling China's military buildup? And 2 U.S. allies vowing to strengthen defense ties, taking a stand against China's growing aggression on the South China Sea. More on that after the break here on China in Focus. Welcome back to China in Focus. I'm Alice Tang, in for Tiffany Meyer. OpenAI, the artificial intelligence research company, has banned several accounts believed to be from China. They were using the ChatGPT chatbot to develop an AI social media surveillance tool. NTD's Sean Marshall has more details.
OpenAI banned a cluster of Chinese language-linked ChatGPT accounts after finding descriptions of tools for monitoring social media activity to be powered by non-OpenAI models. One of this operation's main activities was generating detailed descriptions consistent with sales pitches for what they described as the Qianyu Overseas Public Opinion AI Assistant. Another focus was a workstream using ChatGPT to generate short to medium-length comments about Chinese dissident organizations, notably the spiritual meditation practice Falun Gong, and to generate comments about U.S. policies and politics, as well as researching political actors and topics. Occasionally, the actors asked the model to assume the persona of an English speaker called Thompson. OpenAI was not able to identify these comments posted online. The report also mentioned a social media listening tool that they claimed to have used to feed real-time reports about protests in the West to Chinese security services. The clusters of users were also using the service to assist with analyzing documents and editing and debugging code for those tools. The OpenAI report said this network consisted of ChatGPT accounts that operated in a time pattern consistent with mainland Chinese business hours, prompted our models in Chinese, and used our tools with a volume and variety consistent with manual prompting rather than automation. The principal investigator said this was the first time the company had uncovered an AI tool of this kind. In publicly sharing these cases, OpenAI said it aims to highlight how authoritarian regimes are trying to leverage U.S.-built AI against the U.S. and its allies, as well as their own citizens. Sean Marshall, NTD News.
Oakland University is ending its programs with 3 Chinese universities, following a letter from 2 U.S. congressional representatives. Representatives John Molinar and Tim Wahlberg urged the university to sever ties with Chinese institutions last week. They posted on X concerns about the Chinese Communist Party exploiting U.S. schools to support its military buildup. The university's executive VP for academic affairs emphasized their commitment to protecting U.S. research and intellectual property from China and the CCP. The VP also said the U.S. universities must safeguard their research because the CCP has been known to engage in theft, espionage, and other hostile actions. Oakland University is classified as a doctoral university. This means it's a second-tier research institution funded by the federal government. Similar letters have also been sent to 2 other Michigan universities this week. Now, turning to the Asia Pacific, Japan and the Philippines agreed to further strengthen their defense ties on Monday. Japan's defense minister said the security environment in the Indo-Pacific region is becoming increasingly severe, and he's got his sights locked on one major player, Communist China.
Japanese Defense Minister John Nakatani is on a visit to the Philippines. He met his Philippine counterpart, Gilberto Teodoro, in Manila and discussed regional security issues, including the maritime situation in the East and South China Seas. They agreed to further defense ties between the 2 countries.
We were able to share the recognition with Defense Secretary Teodoro that we will further deepen cooperation among Japan, Australia, and the Philippines, as well as Japan, the United States, and the Philippines.
Nakatani also visited a military base in the Philippines, where he inspected an air surveillance radar system sent by Japan, boosting monitoring capabilities. At the meeting, the Philippines defense minister said the two countries shared a common cause of resisting any unilateral attempt to reshape global order by force. The Philippines and Japan are the closest Asian allies to the U.S. Both have taken a tough line against China. Last year, they signed a landmark military pact allowing the deployment of their forces on each other's soil. Reporting from Taiwan, Joy Chu, NTD News.
Early on Sunday in central China, a Scoot flight bound for Singapore had to take a detour just 20 minutes after leaving an airport due to technical issues. No injuries have been reported so far. Some passengers share their experiences on Chinese TikTok.
One internet user posted on social media platform Douyin, China's version of TikTok, that they saw the engine emitting sparks like a rocket during takeoff. Some said there was a strong smell of fuel after the flight returned to the original airport. Other internet users who said they were on the same flight echoed these comments and said they felt threatened by the situation. Their comments were reported by multiple Chinese media outlets. The flight has now been rescheduled for Monday local time. In response to media inquiries, Scoot said the decision to reschedule the flight was made due to technical issues, but denied there was an engine fire. Scoot Flight is a low-cost airline under Singapore Airlines. Flora Hua, NTD News.
Moving on to data security, last week, South Korean regulators revealed that China's new AI chatbot DeepSeek had been in contact with ByteDance, TikTok's controversial Chinese parent company. South Korea then decided to remove DeepSeek from its app stores. Over in the U.S., lawmakers are also pushing for a ban on China's DeepSeek from all official devices over data security concerns. To break down the risks of Chinese AI model, NTD's Tiffany Meyer sat down with Rex Lee, cybersecurity advisor for MySmartPrivacy.
Now, I want to talk about DeepSeek because recently South Korea's data protection regulators said that DeepSeek has been sending user data to a third party, that third party being the Chinese owner of TikTok, ByteDance. Why would DeepSeek do something like that?
A lot of the public doesn't really understand how all these apps work. What this would mean is that two or more app developers can actually conduct surveillance and data mining on the application end user through a single app.
What can Beijing do with all of that information that it's gathering from around the world?
Everything that we use today in our online lives is supported by surveillance and data mining business practices rooted in surveillance capitalism. So now, how can that be dangerous? Well, now thinking about governments who are colluding with these tech companies, getting the same information that they're getting, you can then launch massive propaganda to billions of people in literally 1 second. If I were running ByteDance today and the CCP said, hey, let's put this piece of propaganda out about Tiananmen Square. Let's say we want to suppress all of that. And then we want to put a pro-China spin on that story, or the Hong Kong protests or COVID. All I do is just call Show Chu up over at ByteDance and say, hey, put this out. And that one piece goes out in a millisecond. You touched over 1 billion people worldwide with that propaganda through their phones and their computers. That is the threat. The overall threat really comes from the surveillance capitalism business model, which I think there needs to be addressed. We're allowing this to happen in the name of targeted advertising, but now you can see where oppressive governments are now taking advantage of these technologies to spread propaganda in the way these companies are promoting hamburgers and tennis shoes and all that other stuff.
When it comes to something like DeepSeek, what exactly are you handing over when you click that agree to use the app in the very beginning?
Well, first of all, when you click on I agree, it's actually a one-way contract of adhesion that benefits the app developer only. It doesn't benefit you, and you can't negotiate with it. People don't realize they're accepting at the same time are the application permission legalese, which are called application permissions. That legalese is intentionally separated from the the terms of service that are posted online that include your T&Cs, your privacy policies, and your end user licensing agreements. So there's a reason they separate this legalese from the other legalese, because the application permission statements explicitly explain how much surveillance and data mining that each developer can conduct on the end user, and it's quite frightful. So if they did put this into their privacy policies, for example, nobody would use the products because they don't understand how much data is being conducted on them or how much surveillance is. So in a nutshell, when you agree to these terms of use, you're agreeing to allow the developer, whether they're in the US, China, South America, Mexico, anywhere, you're allowing them to conduct audio, video, and physical surveillance on you because the apps attach themselves to the camera, microphone, and the accelerometer, meaning that they can actually track your motion so they know when you're sitting, walking, on a bike, in a car, and so forth. So that's audio, video, and physical surveillance, while data mining over 5,000 highly confidential data points associated with your personal, business, medical, legal, biometric, location, and employment information, plus what is called sensitive user data.
Rexley, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
That's all for today's China in Focus. I'm Alice Tang in for Tiffany Meyer. If you have any feedback on the show or have something you'd like to see us cover, send us an email at chinainfocus@ntd.com. We'd love to hear from you. For round-the-clock original news coverage, visit us at ntd.com or download our NTD app. Thanks for watching. See you soon.